Hey, welcome again to the Undiscovered Games video podcast, where we take a look at the lesser-known board games of the world and try to share some of those with you. Now today we're going to throw it back to 1995, which is hard to believe that's almost 30 years ago. But we're going to look at this game called Streetcar. Now this was designed by Stefan Dorra, who's most famous for his little auction game For Sale, which is a great game by the way. Streetcar is much different. This feels more like a blend between Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride a little bit. You're going to be first placing these trolley track tiles throughout New Orleans and creating these pathways through the city. Then you're going to try to run your trolleys along the paths, and you have to hit specific destinations from one end of the board to the other. And the first player to complete their route and run their trolley the whole way and hit the necessary stops is going to be the winner. And if you look on the back of the box, you'll see 1996 Mayfair Games. That's when my edition was produced. That means Streetcar came out way before Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride, and I would argue that Streetcar is every bit as good as those two classics. But for whatever reason, this game just did not become popular, and that's why I'm featuring it, because I think it's worth checking out. And as I'm digging through the box here, I want you to keep in mind this game is from 96, so the component quality is going to be very low. I'm not a fan of how this game really looks or feels, it's just bad quality. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. So let's take a look at how it plays. To start the game, I'm going to deal everybody one of these secret cards. This says I control the number 2 track. No one else knows this, but I'm trying to connect this 2 terminal all the way over to the other 2 terminal there. And in between, I have to hit specific stops at these locations. So we're going to have a deck of cards here. This is going to tell us which stops we have to hit. We have a longer game on the left with 3 stops, or a shorter game on the right with 2 stops. Let's do the shorter game. So we're going to shuffle these up and deal 1 card to each player. Think of these cards like the destination cards you get in Ticket to Ride. They just kind of show you which way you have to run your route. So since I'm the number 2 track, I'm going to have to link stops G and L along my route. So I'm going to find my letters on the board. Here we have the L location, and G is over here on the side. So my trolley track has to run from 2 up top down to G, and then over to L, and then down to 2 again. It has to be a continuous path in that order. Everybody's going to start with the same 5 tiles. You get 2 curvy pieces, and then you get 3 straight pieces. And here you can see just how thin these tiles are. That's my biggest complaint with this game, is these pieces get very fiddly when you're trying to move them around because they're so thin. But again, we're going to overlook that because this is a fun game. On your turn, you get to place 2 track tiles anywhere on the board, wherever you want that's open. Again, we're trying to connect our numbers together, but we don't want our opponents to know what our number is because they could just run our track off into nowhere and really screw us up. So we got to be sneaky where we put these. So let's say that was my first turn. I played my 2 pieces, then I would just draw 2 more pieces to refill my hand. Now you can see there's all kinds of different shapes of these track tiles. Lots of different twists and turns, and it really gets crazy out on the board once everybody starts building their own routes and they start intersecting and everything. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. When you place a tile, you can't obviously run a track into the side like that or into a location. It's pretty easy to understand. You wouldn't be able to run a track off the side of the board like that. The rulebook explains all this stuff very well. It's very intuitive. Now there's a neat little rule that lets you upgrade track pieces. So let's say I had this straight piece with a bend in it. I could actually add this piece over top of that piece to upgrade it, as long as it doesn't change the original path. So as you can see, it still has the original straight with the bend, it just adds a new bend. And that can be really helpful when you get trapped sometimes. Now I could not put this piece over it because as you can see, the straight stretch is no longer there. So that changed the original path, and that's not allowed. Now I want to briefly discuss how the locations work. If I'm the first player to put a track tile next to a location, I immediately put a car stop on that track. If someone else comes in later and puts another track tile next to the same location, it will not get a car stop. Now this is important because the car stop is what you have to hit with your trolley to fulfill your card. So like that's the letter L. I have to stop on that spot for that to count toward my goal. So I have to hit L and then continue up to G and then up to 2. We're gonna fast forward later in the game. I'm about to complete my track and my opponent is gonna stick this piece in here. Now at this point in the game, they know I'm going up to the 2 and they're just trying to screw me up. Now they do that a lot, so the only way I could really fix that is to put a piece maybe like this on there. Remember, you can upgrade tracks. Then I could curve it up into the 2 terminal. But once your opponents know your number, they will, I promise you, they will try to screw up your route because ultimately it's a race and they're gonna try to slow you down. Once your track is complete, you can start running your route with your trolley. So let's say the 3 player is ready to go here. Their track is done. They're just gonna show everybody that they can make a forward path all the way to their other terminal. Now here they could not make the left-hand turn, so they'd have to go straight through, loop around, and come back up this way, but that's totally fine. And again, at the right angle there, they could not turn. They'd have to find a different path, so maybe up and around this way. There they go. Again, as long as they can make a forward pathway all the way to their other terminal, and you can even go through other players' terminals on the way, that's completely fine. So as long as they can do that, they're ready to run their route. Now earlier, I had declared I was also ready to run my route over here, so we're gonna show you how the movement works. The first player to move is gonna move 1 space. The next player to move gets to move 1 more space than the previous player. So we'll track our movement here. So they moved 1 spot. That means I get to move 2 spots. So 1, 2, then we're gonna set the movement track over here to 2. Now 3 should get to move 3 spots, but they're gonna hit a car stop. So they really only moved 1. That means I get to move 2. So this car stops are gonna slow everybody down. So I moved 2. Now they get to move 3 spots. So 1, 2, 3. And again, I should get to move 4 spots now, but I'm gonna hit another car stop here. 1, 2, 3. That means the next player gets to move 1 more than that, which is 4. So they get to move 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're gonna hit a car stop. Now I get to move 5 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is my favorite part of the game because it gets really exciting toward the end. Everybody's up around the table watching this little race play out in real time, and you can't really tell how you're gonna do ahead of time. You really have to watch it play out as it's happening, and everybody's cheering their cars on to win. And it just seems like a fitting end to the game because you spent all game building these tracks and now you get to watch, like, look at this. I get to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots in 1 turn. That is so exciting when that happens. And just to clarify, you know, you can start running your trolley as soon as your track is complete. You don't have to wait till the other players' tracks are complete. So in a sense, the whole game is a race, because as soon as you complete your route, you can start moving your trolley. Other players might not even have their route done yet. And that is just, I don't know, I've never played any game like this before. You know, there's this ongoing tension from start to finish. You know, you don't want to give away your secret number, so you're trying to be sneaky where you put your tracks. And then once you figure out other players' numbers, you're trying to screw up their tracks and make your track more efficient than theirs. And it can be a bit cutthroat at times, but it doesn't feel like an overly mean game. It's just that you're all sharing the same board and you will get in each other's way. That does happen in this game. And obviously, if there is a person who's about to finish their track and it's obvious that they're going to put their last piece in, then yes, you can screw up their track and hopefully make them waste a few turns, you know, trying to fix it, because ultimately the game is a race and you're trying to slow each other down. But I would say that's what makes this game fun. I mean, you have some player interaction there, you have a race to the finish, you have a little bluffing going on because you don't want to be obvious which track you're building. So you've got to be sneaky. You've got to throw your opponents off sometimes by just placing tracks that make no sense and keep them guessing. So there's a lot of those little subtleties to the game. There's not a ton of depth here. There's not a ton of strategy, but there are some thoughtful decisions to make while you're planning your route. I mean, you don't want to have too many car stops along the way, and you don't want to have too many loop arounds if you can help it. So maybe it makes sense to spend a few extra turns, you know, building a more efficient route before you say, hey, I'm ready to run my trolley on it. There's enough depth there to keep me coming back, but to me, the game's not about the depth. It's about the tension between the players. There's a tension there the entire time because you don't know what the other players are doing and what they're up to. So you're always trying to read each other. You're trying not to be obvious with your tile placement, but you always think that they know what you're doing, So the game just builds and builds and builds throughout, and then it all culminates in this exciting little race at the end of the game that uses a really neat movement mechanism that I've never seen used before. Okay, so in conclusion, I'm going to rate Streetcar an 8.5 out of 10. And I gotta say, if the pieces were a little bit better quality, I would bump up my rating to a 9, maybe even a 9.5, because I think the game itself is that much fun. However, these paper-thin track tiles are extremely fiddly, so that does bring my rating down slightly. However, the game is still fantastic. I love this one. My wife loves it too. In fact, my whole family thinks it's great, so I hope that you enjoy it as much as we do. Check out Streetcar. And as always, thank you so much for joining us on the Undiscovered Games video podcast. We really appreciate you watching and listening from wherever you are in the world. If you want to help the channel, you can click subscribe and share this video with your friends. There's also a donate link in the description if you wish to support us. Any proceeds go toward making more videos like this and just better quality content in the future. We really have a passion for finding these undiscovered games and sharing them with you. Also, we have an Instagram page if you're not familiar with that. Go give us a follow on the IG. We are at undiscovered_games. We post a lot of cool pictures and written reviews over there as well. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you on the next one.